want to go to one place in Europe in order to see where we are in this story from 500 to 1000, and have some sense of culture and art, and to have some sense of how these people, after this long interval, are recovering the heritage of the ancient world. Now, one of the things we should emphasize in the story we just studied here, the decline of Rome and the 7 and the 8 and the 900s, are the following things. Number one, in the decline of Rome, an opportunity is offered to these new barbarian-based kingdoms that then convert to Christianity in order to build something new. And so these states that are built are often a better size to be managed, not as huge as the empire, often better organized, often discovering ways to involve their people that the Roman Empire had not, and therefore integrating the state better and in a more creative way. And so, number one, there are things we see here that are progressive. So when we look at the Dark Ages, 500 to 1000, it's not negative, it's not all bad, it's not all destruction, although there's a lot of destruction. But also it's creative. And one of the ways it is these new, energetic people who are moving into these areas of Europe get the opportunity to build something new. So, for example, the Franks come to the Loire Valley and move in and create a new society, a new civilization, which will be the Frankish kingdom. They will use Roman roads and Roman bridges and Roman cities and Roman temples, and they will move in and build a new society. So something good is happening. And you have this going on in Spain, in a Visigothic kingdom, that is the Goths, who move into Spain first and then set up a new civilization using Toledo as their capital. So Loire is the capital, Tours is the capital of the Franks, Toledo is the capital of the Visigothic Spain. They become Christian, and then they build a new society there. And the same thing is happening in northern England that we just saw. So in each of these places, a new society, a new vision, a new idea is being created that will be the basis of all of Europe as we know it today. So the France of the present time is created by these people in this moment of Charlemagne. That's when France is born. And the Spanish story is a longer story, but we could talk about that another night. And the English story is another story. But the places where creativity come are the ones we just pointed to. For England, it just happens to be northern England. It could have been the south, it could have been the far west. But in the story of England, it's York and the north of England and the Yorkish kings, the kings of Northumbria. And in each of these places, the new barbarian rulers who are Christian, who are building this new society, use Rome, use Christianity, use their tribal background, and build on that. And note, particularly in the story of Charlemagne, that they agree that Augustine, Ambrose, and Jerome were right. Charlemagne and Alcuin, his education minister, they agree with Augustine, Ambrose, and Jerome that Athens has everything to do with Jerusalem. In other words, we bring them together. In other words, we work again in our generation, the 800s and the 900s, to save the great works of Greece and the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament. We save all that literature, we copy it, and we hope it survives. And it did, and it does. So that's the basis of Europe. That's the basis of everything we talk about next week. When we turn to Eleanor of Aquitaine and her world, that is the Europe after 1000. That is being built by these people. Now, we want to go and see a great work of art that is out of the Carolingian world, out of the larger world of the Frankish kingdom, and that is Saxony. And here it is, Hildesheim Cathedral. which is in northern Germany, just a little distant from Aachen, where Charlemagne had his capital. And it's built, and the work of art I show you is created at about the year 1000. So this is as close as we can get. The actual year that's written down is 1010, but they would have been working on it even earlier. So, 1000. So what is the state of art? What is the state of knowledge of history? What is the state of the vision of the human being in the year 1000? We want to just see this. This is one of the greatest works of art in the whole world. It has survived 1,000 years. It has survived 2 terrible wars that swept right through here, World War I and World War II. World War II did terrible damage to the cathedral you're seeing in front of you, but fortunately, they had moved this great work of art. So when the bombing came, they saved it. Here's the center of the beautiful little town of Hildesheim, which has been all restored since World War II. Here's a map which shows you where this is. So this is just over the border from the Netherlands, just over the border from Belgium, just over the border from France. So Aachen is right there close to Bonn. You can see where Bonn is, and you can see where Aachen is. So it's just right on the border of Germany. It's where the 3 countries meet, Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany. Right there. It's a wonderful visit if you want to see the capital of Charlemagne and his church and where he's buried. It's a great visit. But we're going to go to Hildesheim, which is just below Hanover. And if I give you a little better map here of Germany, you can see that right below Hanover is Hildesheim. So it's a small city in this lovely countryside and with a spectacular cathedral. Why was this so important in the year 1000? Well, in the descendants of Charlemagne, the French Carolingians had not stayed unified, and other members of the family had moved to Burgundy and to Bavaria and into Germany. And so there were dynastic lines in Germany that could claim to be legitimate successors to Charlemagne, and one of those was Otto of Saxony. And so about the year 950, the Holy Roman Emperor becomes Otto the First, Holy Roman Emperor, who is from Saxony. This is where we are, Saxony. And he has a son and a grandson. So you have Otto the First, Otto the Second, Otto the Third, the Ottonian Holy Roman Emperors, and they dominate the international political world, the one we've just been talking about. They go to Rome, they get crowned in St. Peter's, they're friends of the Pope in that period from roughly 900 to 1000. And in 1000, Otto III goes to Rome and arranges for the election of his very best friend to be Pope Sylvester II. So in the year 1000, here we are here tonight, you have the Holy Roman Empire continuing, and the person who represents that is a German, Saxony, and he is elected Holy Roman Emperor. The emperors are elected. He is elected, and then he goes to Rome and is crowned Holy Roman Emperor by his friend, Pope Sylvester. So that's the state of Christendom in the year 1000. A Holy Roman Emperor who is strong and brilliant and well-educated, and a great pope, a reforming pope, who was very interested in the classical world and the Islamic world, and had studied Islamic science from Spain, from Islamic Spain, and now he's in Rome. He had been the Bishop of Ravenna before he became Pope, okay? So that's what explains this very great church in northern Germany in the year 1000, because the bishop here was the tutor of the Holy Roman Emperor. So he was a good friend of Otto III. Here he is. This is Bishop Bernward. Bishop Bernward. You say the W like a V in the Volkswagen. So Bishop Bernward. He has no relationship to Volkswagen, except that he helps you pronounce his name. So Bishop Bernward, 960 to 1022. So he's the teacher, friend, good friend of the Holy Roman Emperor, who is a Saxon. He's from Saxony. And is reigning in the 950s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And Bishop Bernward, while he was the bishop here at Hildesheim, worked to build this church and to decorate it. And as part of the decoration, he worked to create a beautiful set of doors for the cathedral. Here's the cathedral now. That's the west end. Here's just a look at the side of it. It's been beautifully restored. There was a lot of damage in World War II, but now it's beautifully restored. This is a perfect Romanesque interior, 1,000, simple, extremely simple. Now, at this point, of course, people have been building churches for hundreds and hundreds of years, and this one here's the great, spectacular chandelier that hangs over the altar. The Germans were great metallurgists. They were experts in metal work and metal jewelry and coinage, and because they had mines all over Germany that were very, very productive, and that was true all the way to the time of Luther. So they were able to mine tin and copper and other ingredients for the great works of art. So there's the interior of the church, and here is the west front, which is the main door, and here are the doors that I want you to see here tonight. These are bronze doors. They weigh several tons. They're quite thick, and each panel is an individual bronze casting from a model. So the reason this is so interesting is this is such a huge project in the year 1000. It means, more important than anything, this is a newly rich society. In other words, at the year 1000, Europe is getting rich, Italy is getting rich, France is getting rich, England is getting rich, everybody is getting richer, and they have money for art, and so this bishop in this town arranges for this incredible work of art. And so these are the, usually people call them the Bernvard doors. They know he commissioned them, so the easy way to talk about them is the Bernvard doors in Hildesheim, or the Hildesheim doors. So they're bronze, and bronze is very expensive to make, and a bronze work of sculpture is very expensive because if you make a mistake, if you screw it up in the casting, if, say, it cracks when it cools, you have to throw it away. You can't reuse the metal because you've made it specially for that casting. So the ingredients, you throw it away. And it's extremely expensive in the first place. So to do all these panels, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 16 panels. It was extremely expensive, and there was obviously money given to them by the emperor and by the church. So they're made by what is called the lost wax process. And the lost wax process is a Greek invention. It is mentioned all through history. The Romans knew all about it and did it, so there are doors at the Pantheon. But then it's lost for a considerable period of time, and now at 1000, clearly someone found something in the manuscripts that explained the lost wax, and so they tried it again. So it's expensive. They have the metals that they can use. They have the tin, they have the copper, etc., so they can make them. And in order to do the lost wax process, you have to make a model first that's exactly this. You make a model in clay, and then you build a structure around it that can be dismantled. And then you build an exterior structure, and then you pour the molten bronze down tubes that go through openings that you've left into your mold and your model, and the wax is in the intersection between the clay model and the exterior, and it all melts away. As the hot bronze comes in, the wax goes out. That's why it's called the lost wax process. The metal goes in, and hopefully, if all the temperature is right, and if the time of the day is right, and if the day of the year is right, and if the moon is right, it cools without cracking or breaking, and when you're done, then you take it out of the mold, and then you polish it, because there'll be lots of marks on it where the bronze caught on edges, and so then you polish it, and finally you mount it on a huge iron structure right here. This is enormously heavy. It weighs several tons, maybe 3 tons for the whole structure. And when they took it out in World War II, they took the whole thing down and put it on a cart, laid it flat on a cart, and had a whole team of horses drag it away. I don't know how many horses it took, but it was a huge project because it's so heavy. So it was all hidden underground in a cave during the war and then brought back. And each one is done independently, and then you put it all together. And they open. Now, they have it so that you're inside the church looking at it so that it's protected. Originally, it would have been on the exterior. All right, so I'll move you closer, and then I will move you next to the explanation and the picture. So on the right, you have the themes, and on the left, you have the picture of the door. And what you see is that on the left, you have Old Testament stories, and on the right, you have New Testament stories. And the idea is that the Old Testament story connects us to the New Testament story on the other side. And the stories start at the top left, they go down the left side, then they go across the bottom, then they go from the bottom right up to the top right. So the oldest story is there, the creation of Adam and Eve in the top picture, and then Eve and then Adam and Eve get the temptation, and then God comes upon them and says, you did a bad thing, and then the next one he says, and you're going to have to leave, and then Adam and Eve end up working their lives off, struggling and working hard because they were bad. So that's Adam and Eve. And then Cain and Abel, and the last one on the left is Cain slaying Abel, of course. Bad sin. You're not supposed to slay your brother. And then across to the right side, you see, in the moment of despair and sin and murder and horror and bad behavior, on the right side, Annunciation says, but you can be saved. So then the next one up is the Nativity, which of course chronologically is after the Annunciation, and the next one, the Adoration of the Magi, and then the presentation of Jesus in the temple, and the judgment of Jesus before Pilate, the crucifixion, Mary at the tomb, and finally Jesus' rising from the dead. So those are the themes of the panels.